What's going on, everyone? Is the Derf, and in today's video, Titans, I got another good one for you. This is a Void Titan build featuring the new Praxic blade, Stronghold gauntlets, and a whole host of debuffing and self-buffing that virtually makes you almost unkillable in all content. This build will allow you to print orbs of power, give you 1-minute supers, practically have infinite Devour procced at all times, and we're going to talk about overshields in this build as well. Be the Titan that you want to be with this Stronghold Titan build, and also enjoy a lot of the effects that you Warlocks out there ordinarily get to have all the fun with. So stick with me on this one. Hopefully you guys like the build. Without further delay, let's get it going. To get us started with our overpowered Sentinel Titan build, we got to talk about the super. The super of choice that I really like is the Sentinel Shield, but the super of choice that you might like could be literally any of these. The reason that I like this, I can't really explain it. It just feels right, feels like what a Titan should do when they pop into their super. I don't know. Use whatever reasoning that you want. But it's not going to make a bit of difference if you prefer Ward of Dawn or the Twilight Arsenal. Both are going to have their place on the battlefield. Both are going to serve their own purpose, and both are going to be equally satisfying as the Sentinel Shield. So whichever one that you want to put on is going to be fine. You're going to be generating your super in probably 1 minute, maybe even less, depending on what kind of activity you're in. So it's not really going to matter. So use whichever super that you want. The Sentinel Shield, this is just the one that I prefer. For abilities, we're going to go with Rally Barricade, Strafe Lift. I sincerely prefer the Shield Throw. I don't know, maybe I just can't get over the Shield Throw from seasons past where I used to use it to beef up my super quicker. But for whatever reason, the Shield Throw just also seems like it makes sense in this. And then my personal preference is going to be the Magnetic Grenade. Now, the Magnetic Grenade probably won't make a lot of sense to many people. The reason that I like it is, number one, it explodes twice. So, typically speaking, when you're in busier activities, the second explosion helps kill more enemies. But you can obviously make an argument for like a Void Wall, Void Spike, Scatter Grenade, Axiom Bolt, Suppressor Grenade, or the Vortex Grenade. Whatever grenade that you want, this is not going to be your main play anyways. Pick the grenade that you find to be the most satisfying to use for this build, or just avoid Titan in general, because it's dealer's choice. For aspects, first up is going to be Bastion. Cast your super to grant Overshield to nearby allies. Casting your Barricade grants Overshield to yourself and nearby allies and empowers it, enabling it to slowly regenerate the Overshield of allies bunkering behind it and extend their Overshield duration. So you got a couple of things that are going on with Bastion. First, you're going to get an Overshield when you cast your super. That means as you're roaming around the battlefield, just absolutely wrecking it, you're going to have that Overshield to start yourself off with. Second, every time that you cast your Barricade, now ordinarily in a lot of different Titan builds, you get different effects that happen. You know, Arc, you get Bolt Charge, Strange, you get the Suspension, Solar, you get the Blast Barricade, all these things that the Titans can do with their Barricades to kind of help or, you know, attack on the battlefield, so to speak. Bastion is going to be different. Bastion is the true essence of hunkering down, regaining your bearings, and then going back out and fighting. And that's what Bastion really brings to the table. So the Overshield is really nice, and the ability to help your allies put an Overshield on their backs on top of whatever else they might have going on. So if you're running this build with, let's say, a Warlock who's got like a Healing Rift, or maybe even a Hunter who can proc Radiant for you guys by using their class ability, adding this into the mix is going to be like the best of all worlds, because everyone's going to benefit from it, just like you might benefit from other people's ability buffs, if that makes sense. So Bastion is kind of a support when it comes to the Sentinel Titan, and I kind of think support is important in this, because whatever you can do to take the heat off of your allies, that's kind of the point of running a Stronghold Titan build in general, if that makes sense. Bastion just kind of fits that with the Sentinel build. Next up, we're going to have Controlled Demolition. Hitting a target with a Void ability or volatile explosion makes them volatile. Further damage to a volatile target causes them to explode, grants you and nearby allies health, while volatile targets explode near you. So, being able to proc volatile is going to be great. We also compare this with some of the aspects inside, or not the aspects, we can also pair this with some of the artifact mods with this season's artifact that are going to add on and stack with this in ways that also expand the tree, so to speak, of what you can do with your Titan overall. For fragments, first up is going to be Echo of Harvest. Defeating weakened targets creates an orb of power and a void breach. Once we go through the weapons, you're going to understand why defeating weakened targets creates an orb breach is the number one fragment you're going to want from this. Next up is going to be Echo Starvation. Picking up a void breach or an orb of power grants Devour. Now, unlike Warlock, you cannot just self proc Devour. You have to pick up that void breach, and you have to get that orb of power from those abilities so that you can proc Devour. Now, once you have Devour, you can keep Devour and extend it by getting continuous kills, which won't be hard with this build at all. Next up, we're going to have Echo Persistence. Void buffs applied to you, Visibility, Overshield, and Devour, have increased duration. So this is going to stack with both our Overshield capabilities and giving ourselves Devour. Basically giving us infinite health, theoretically, and almost infinite Overshield regen, depending on how fast your gameplay goes. Minus 10 to health, but as you can see, once we get to the armor stats, I'm not even worried about it. It's that good. Next up, and last but not least, Echo of Reprisal. Final blows while surrounded by combatants grant super energy. I picked this one specifically because I want my super energy back as fast as possible. The reason I want my super energy back as fast as possible is because on top of being able to support my teammates, on top of being able to draw enemy fire away, and on top of being able to do a ton of debuffing by just going nuts on all the enemies on the battlefield, just being a one-man wrecking crew, I like the idea of being able to proc into my super, jump into my super, and just shield bash enemies to death. So there's not really a lot of science behind it other than it's visually appealing to me personally on the screen. But you can make an argument for a lot of other fragments that could go in this. You know, if you want the abilities to cause targets to explode, that's a fun one. Really anything that you want. So I guess one of the best parts about this build is that you got a fragment in here that you can kind of interchange and see what works best. A lot of builds are kind of one-dimensional where you have to have every single thing pairing with every single thing in order for it to be like a complete build. But this is a build where, hey, you've got a roaming super, you got that working in your favor. You've got so many different abilities that you can just pick what you want to do, and your aspects kind of just carry it for you. But the fragments make sense in the first 75% of them. And then the last one, you get to be creative a little bit more and say, okay, what else can I use to put the cherry on top for a build like this? But we'll talk about that more later. Echo of Reprisal just seems to work best for me here. For stat distribution, I recommend focusing heavily into weapons, then into super, and eventually melee with a little bit of grenade. You don't need to get your grenade up to 100, although if you are able to do that, hey, more power to you. You don't need to get your melee way over 100, although if for some reason you do want to, that's great too. Your two main damage output stats are going to be weapons and super, so those are the two that you want for sure to be at least moderately above 100, with your weapons obviously way more than moderately above 100. At 153, your weapons are doing ridiculous damage, and remember, part of this build is running around with the special ammo weapons, so all the extra damage you're going to be doing on top of what the 100 plus super stat or the weapon stat buff gives you, you're also going to be using a special ammo weapon, which inherently generally generates more damage per hit than, say, a primary ammo weapon. For weapons, first up is going to be the Praxic blade. Now, I am not a sword guy, okay? When I put a sword on, it's usually because I'm running a Stronghold Titan. All right, I'm just going to come right out and say that. So some of the, the veterans, the Titan veterans that might be watching this video going, well, why am I listening to you then, Durf? You're just kind of a fair weather Titan fan then. Yes and no. I am a fair weather Titan fan in the sense that Strongholds has a huge place in a lot of fire teams for a lot of different activities. But this Praxic blade really makes it so that you can customize those play styles to fit what you want to do. And let me explain. So for instance, let's talk about Hyperblade. Reflecting shots causes you to become amplified. That means regardless of whatever kind of class that you're running, you can be amplified. Well, that's going to be pretty useful in virtually every element, whether you're running Void, solar, strand, stasis, doesn't matter. You can reflect shots, instantly become amplified, and then what? Now you're moving around the battlefield with melee style gameplay and arc amplified speed. I don't see a situation where that doesn't benefit everyone. Next up, we can talk about the core. While there's a bunch of cores here, of course, one is not available yet until you complete until you find it in the Equilibrium dungeon. But let's talk about the first two. So the Impact Core, which is what I prefer for this build, melee damage from this weapon applies an elemental effect that matches your equipped super. Well, when you scroll all the way down to Void, well, I guess not all the way down, midway, every target that you melee with this weapon weakens them. Well, that's going to be pretty darn useful in a fire team. So this makes a lot of sense to keep on Impact Core. However, if you're in really, really sweaty content and you just want to use reflection damage, guess what? You can do the same thing. I think the way to go for this build, though, is going to be Impact Core. Then we can talk about all the different focuses. I don't have a lot of them unlocked. It's just kind of how it's gone for me so far this season because I'm trying to get some of these builds done early so we can revisit them later once we all come to kind of fuller power. But the crystal strength is pretty good, increases your charge rate, the grip, guard resistance. I don't really know if that's necessary, but the two down here, when you get a blade ammo, increases ammo capacity, invigorating blade, charge rate, guard resistance. But this forceful blade, once you get these unlocked, now you can increase your impact damage. That's going to make this thing even more ridiculous to use when running around the battlefield while you're amplified and while you're weakening everything. And then, of course, the form. Now, all of these have a couple of things in common. The first is obviously that you get a benefit, and the second is that you get an even better benefit. The first benefit for like the balance form and the defensive form and the offensive form all focus around granting ammo to the weapon. The second is going to be based on the actual form itself. So like for offensive form, increases damage against bosses and vehicles. Defensive form, blocking attack immediately after guard, increases damage for a short duration. And the balance form, which I think is best, is increases damage against rank and file combatants. Rank and file combatants are pretty much anything that are not a champ or a boss. So when you're in had dense activity, it's probably best to have the balance form on. But you could also make an argument for the defensive form on as well. So it just really depends on your playstyle, but I really like the balance form with this. And this is what's so much different about the Praxic blade than literally every other sword out there. Not only because it's a lightsaber and it's the first of its kind for Destiny, but the fact that you can customize your playstyle within a sword means you're not hunting for that perfect god roll like you are with literally every other sword out there, even going back to like Ergo Sum in the final shape. The Praxic blade stands alone, which means now there's a sword out there that's not just for, let's just say, the people who like to skate with their swords, and not just for people who want to use Stronghold Titan like myself. The Praxic blade can go on a lot of different things. So the fact that we're using this in Stronghold Titan is kind of like the tip of the iceberg for what you could actually use this for. That's why it works so well, because once you get into like the different add-ons that you can have here, suddenly you can customize this blade just as much as you can customize this Sentinel class in general, and that makes it a really, really strong weapon. The other two weapons don't really matter as much. I recommend having kind of a backup add clear weapon just in case you are in an ammo famine situation. I run around with Reckless Oracle, but you can see I've experimented with all of these here. You know, the new heat weapons, Corsair Eterna, Shoreline Dissident. That's funny. I know I have more kills on a different shoreline, but I thought it was this one when I pulled it from the vault. My bad. Or the Mida Mini Tool. Just whatever you want. The Moss, a Thanor 4 is pretty good as well, destabilizing with sword logic. But I just run around with something in the energy slot that can deal with just something in the moment in case I really do need to swap out of my sword to get myself a little bit of ammo progress. But in the heavy slot, I'm using something that actually brings the pain. So in this instance, I'm using Unwavering Duty with Bait and Switch. You can use Submersion. You can make an argument for 86 with the, oh my goodness, why am I, Flash Counter and like Hatchling or like On Guard or something like that. Or you can use the Haliatus, which is still one of my favorite rocket launchers in the game. Heck, if you want to try out the new sniper rifle, oh, by the way, that's a kinetic damage sniper rifle. So we'll talk about that some other time in some other video, but that's kind of fun. You can run around with basically whatever you want in the heavy slots, so mod it based on what kind of bosses you might be encountering and or champs. These two should focus on champs. And oh, by the way, I forgot to totally mention, the Praxic Blade can stun barrier champs, so intrinsically, I mean, that's as good as Wish Ender, quite honestly. Anyways, moving on. So the Stronghold Gauntlets Clenched Fist maximizes guard stat on equipped swords. You take reduced damage while blocking with the sword. Rapidly damaging targets after blocking shots with a sword grants restoration for a short duration determined by the number of shots blocked. So we talked about weakening. We talked about amplification. Now we're talking about, you got it, restoration. Those are 3 buffs ordinarily only able to be procced by, let's just say, warlocks on a very easily, readily basis. Now a Titan can do that. Well, that's a pretty darn important kind of Titan in my book. And the Praxic Blade gives you the ability to move around the battlefield in such a way that does that, which means something like Stronghold, even though you're using it for the guard ability, suddenly becomes like the icing on the overall cake, not just the whole cake in this Titan build, which really makes this Sentinel Titan stand out. For the rest of the armor, go ahead and spec into whatever general armor mod that you need. In the helmet, I recommend at least having a kinetic siphon and 1 special ammo finder mod on. I also like to throw on the harmonic siphon just because it's 1 energy, and the other 3 are going to pretty much max you out. But you can put on whatever you want here. You can even drop this down to a single energy cost general armor mod, and you can put on something different here. Like if you want to just add on, you know, ashes to assets, let's say, you can throw that on here and you can still have your kinetic siphon. For the gauntlets, go ahead and put on 1 firepower and 1 heavy-handed. Also throw on the fastball so you can chuck your grenade even faster. For the chest armor, go ahead and put on 2 elemental resistance mods. Make sure you check the damage or the threat in the activities you go into, because since we're going to be so aggressive with this build, it's important to have the resistances right and not just kind of winging it, if that makes sense. Throw on a kinetic ammo generation mod to ensure that you practically never run out of ammo for your sword. Yes, I know how that sounds. I get it. For the legs, go ahead and throw on 2 absolutions and an innervation, but you can also make an argument instead of innervation, put on better already for the harder content, because 1 orb of power regenerates more health than just a recuperation mod. And then finally for the class item, put on your class font, your Reaper, and of course your Bomber, or whatever you want in that 4th slot. Class ability with 1 orb pickup, it bumps it by 20, and with 2 orb pickup, you're basically going to be instant cooldown for your class ability, because it doesn't take that long to get your Rally Barricade back in the first place. And then once you cast your Rally Barricade, of course you're going to be hunkering, and you're going to be killing those enemies. So get your free overpower. For the artifact, go ahead and spec into whatever weapon type that you need. In the 2nd column, put on expert handling and elemental siphon. In the 3rd column, make sure you throw on power for pain and riposte. You can also make an argument for kinetic synthesis once you have all of these unlocked. You can see them at 9 of 12. In the 4th column, go ahead and put on singularity blade and combination argent blade. In the final column, Kinetic Rupture is going to be a fun one for a lot of people, and then Sword Storm combo is also going to be a fun one for most people. But if you did want to put on Void Infestation, this would be the only Stronghold Titan build of which that would make sense, simply because we are a Void class and we're going to be weakening everything. So just pick whichever style that you want and roll with it. Anyway, so that is the build. Let me know in the comments what you guys would change. Let me know what you think of what the future for Stronghold Titans are going to be now that the Praxic Blade is kind of going to be like the standard going forward for versatile blades. Are we going to get more lightsabers, things like that? Is there a legendary one on the way? Who knows? But this build is great for a lot of reasons. Not necessarily because, oh, it's just another Stronghold Titan derf. They're all the same. Yes and no. Stronghold is Stronghold is Stronghold. I get it. Doesn't matter what element you pair it with. Stronghold is going to help you regardless. However, the Praxic Blade really does blend all of the elements together to give them elements I didn't mean to say it like that, but you get what I mean. To give them different characteristics based on the element of what you're picking. So, like this build has Void. The Void is going to weaken. Well, pretty much everybody on your fire team, including those randoms who can't hit the broadside of the barn that they're shooting at, can benefit from you weakening enemies. So when you're in the really sweaty content and it seems like, man, I'm the only one that can do real damage, well, you're not. Not with this build. Not only are you able to stay alive, not only are you able to deal huge damage, you're also able to weaken enemies, which also means that as you continue to cause melee damage and all those enemies are focused on you, your allies who are hanging out on the side, just using whatever weapons they want to just mow enemies down, they're going to be able to deal increased damage, which means you guys as a team are going to survive more often and also beat enemies faster more often. So when you're in those really sweaty activities, maybe the new GM, maybe the Grandmaster difficulties of these contract missions, you're not going to be hurting as badly as someone who doesn't have Void in their fire team. And, oh, by the way, you're a Stronghold Titan who theoretically should always be the first in, the last out, and always the one left standing. So if you guys did find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a Guardian out there who would benefit from a build like this, make sure you share this video with them or send them my way. My goal is to help as many people as possible. As always, I will have a dim link in the video description. And if by chance you guys are looking for that non-toxic gaming community, I highly recommend jumping into my Discord. Everyone is going nuts trying to get these catalysts for the Praxic Blade, running the conquest missions. Of course, the new GM just came out. We got the Equilibrium dungeon on deck. So it's a great time to get involved with the community that likes helping, Guardians helping other Guardians. That's what it's all about. So I'm going to switch over to some extra gameplay here, and we're going to wrap it up. So one of the things that the Praxic Blade has effectively done for people that love playing Stronghold Titan, for example, which is always a welcome in one of my fire teams, by the way, is the fact that you can customize the blade in and of itself to be what you need it to be as you need it. And what I mean by that is, in this instance, for the Stronghold Void Titan build, you're weakening everything. Well, that is thanks to the blade. So now Stronghold, it doesn't matter if you have an elemental blade or not. The Praxic Blade is your elemental blade if you look at it like that, which means in a Void build, you are no longer just some, class that just walks around guarding the entire time. Sure, that might be a large majority of it, depending on what kind of activities that you're running. You're also the aggressor, you're also the debuffer, you're also the guy that's always got a super every 1 minute or so, and you're also dealing huge damage all at once because this is a special ammo sword. And you're also never running out of ammo because, again, it's a special ammo sword. So there's a lot of things that the Praxic Blade has done for Titans alone. Virtually every class, to be quite honest with you, not just Titans, but Titans, because we clung to those Stronghold exotic armors for so long in our vaults, what this effectively does is it adds flavor to the Stronghold playstyle, making you inadvertently even more aggressive than you can be in some other Titan builds, which is really a benefit. So anyways, hopefully you guys liked the video. Let me know in the comments what kind of changes you'd make to your setup for your Void Titan. Let me know how the blade is working for you and what kinds of craziness you guys are drumming up with it. I will see you guys next time. Thanks as always for your support. Take care.